What's up, everybody? My name is Michael, or Kiratze online. Hopefully you guys are having a great day or a great start to the weekend, if you're watching this on the weekend. I am back for another deck tech. This is not decking around. This is just a regular old deck tech, and I like to do these deck techs for decks where I've hit a milestone, I guess. And I just recently got gold. It took me 2 hours to get from rank 15 to gold. I got on a win streak. I'm currently still on a 7 win streak, which is awesome. Maybe we'll even beat my win streak of 13, which is the top win streak I've ever had. But who knows? This deck is super solid. I'm really liking it. This is going to be my probably go-to list for climbing, or at least one of them. And I was struggling a little bit at 15, trying to do some more gimmicky stuff, of course. But I figure, okay, well, I said last season I wanted to try and hit S rank a little bit earlier this season, so I have a little bit more time to sort of goof around, I guess. And so I mainly use the weekends to do my try-hard climbs, quote-unquote, I guess, because I play better in the morning, and, it's just much easier to play rather than, doing a whole long tiring day of work and then having to play. My mind's super tired, and especially if I decide to stream it, when you're streaming and trying to be entertaining and commentating while you're playing, it actually does reduce the quality of your play. It's actually quite tough, so I do make more misplays. And when you're climbing, every play counts. Like the only game, I only lost one game on my way to gold, and it was due to a misplay. So if I didn't make that misplay, I would have still been on a win streak, I guess. And it would have been huge, because I think it took me 9 games, I think. Judging from my profile, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Yeah, 9 games. 9 games from rank, I think the start of, like the end of rank 15 or start of rank 14 to rank 10. I could have been on a 9 win streak by now, but sadly a misplay costed me the game, and it was the game-winning misplay. I would have won the next turn, and my misplay made me lose that turn. So it happens. Just gotta readjust when possible. But today is a deck for the Threat-byssian deck, is what I'm calling it. Because, there's a lot of good threats in the neutral section. There's a lot of good threats in Byssian. They have some of the best late-game legendaries, and ramping into those is fun. And this list is a little bit more on the unique side, because we have 3 Darkfire Sacrifices, but we are not having any Wraithling effect, and we aren't having Sarlacc in the deck. And there's a couple of reasons for that. I'll throw up the list, and you guys can look at it while I talk about it. So this is Threat-byssian. You'll notice there are a couple interesting card choices. We have 2 Blood Tier Alchemist. We're using Chaos Elemental, and we're using the lesser-known Dancing Blades. Usually not played too much nowadays, but I think it's actually really solid in Byssian, and Byssian needs sort of a good mid-game body in these kinds of decks, and Dancing Blades is huge in tempo. Being able to kill off something, it's a good activator for Grasp of Agony sometimes, and you can get good board control. And this deck is all about the board control. I wanted to make a board control deck utilizing minions mostly, sort of like a zoo deck, but I'm still tinkering around with the idea of a more zoo-like style list. But this deck is all about getting on board early, using your early minions to take control of that board in conjunction with one of the best artifacts in the game, Spectral Blade. You can have solid mid-game control and solid early-game control, especially with Grasp of Agony as well. And you just do everything you can to get the board, because going from early, mid to late game, you have threat after threat after threat. And that's why I'm calling it Threat-byssian. You're really just making it tough for your opponent to deal with your stuff. Cards like Keeper of the Veil are quote-unquote sticky, almost. Dancing Blades has a good body. Chaos Elemental has a good body. Vorpal Reaver is super sticky, plus super threatening. So you have a lot of really strong cards. And the reason I don't have Sarlacc is it doesn't help one of our worst matchups, which is Vitruvian. They can deal with it too easily, and it doesn't do enough for us in the matchup. It's too slow, so we get killed too fast to get anything going with against Songhai and any aggressive decks. And we're not running Wraithlings because I feel the strategy just is not as powerful as it can be. Hopefully they buffs along the future help that sort of playstyle get a little bit better. But again, it's a sort of a slow playstyle, which can be extremely powerful, but does require setup. And with this kind of deck, you're really just looking for instant value, trying to get instant value out of your cards, using Darkfire Sacrifice to use your early drops to just get your late game drops out faster, or be able to do more things at once in the mid to late game. Being able to develop like a spectral, or like in the mid to late game, being able to like develop a Dancing Blades plus an Emerald Rejuvenator for 2 is something that you'll want to do with Darkfire Sacrifice. Sure, you're sacrificing one of your early 2 drops, but what I've noticed is a lot of the time, especially with cards like Primus Fist or Healing Mystic, where you have an opening Gambit and a 2/3 body, more often than not, they don't have any other use in the future. You get the value out of them right away. You get the heal, you get the buff, and then you'll maybe hit one of their 2 drops, and you'll use your other. You'll use your general to finish off the minion, and then it's stuck at 1 health. Then your opposing general is going to hit it for 2 damage. Sure, it makes them stay in the same spot, which can be applicable sometimes, and sure, it gets a 2 damage, but the 2 damage isn't relevant. We're really looking just for board control to slowly just overrun your opponent and just get those threats out, because especially with Vorpal Reaver in the deck, you don't need much to win games. Once you start getting board control, your mid-game minions can just start beating down on your opponent, and 4 damage is a lot. In conjunction with cards like Spectral Blade and Void Pulse, you have some out-of-hand damage, and Primus Fist can help speed things up a bit as well, and Spectral Revenant can end the game quickly also. So the 2/1 minion that you have left over is just a good investment moving forward with Darkfire Sacrifice. I find you can just have big swings in tempo, and this game's all about this deck's all about just using Darkfire Sacrifice as just a big tempo play, being able to get things out early, especially Dancing Blades, for example, getting a 4/6 body and its effect for 3 mana. Sure, you are sacrificing something like a Blood Tier Alchemist maybe, or a Jaxi, but because Jaxi's sticky, and because Blood Tier Alchemist, you get value out of it right away, it's all right to sacrifice those things if you're getting these kinds of bodies and effects out on the board, because you're able to remove something and develop a 4/6. It's huge, and especially when you're running cards like Keeper of the Veil. If you're sacrificing a Jaxi, for example, you still get the mini Jaxi, and then you can use Keeper of the Veil to actually, you can Darkfire Sacrifice into Keeper of the Veil, play it for 3 mana, get a 4/5, and get your Jaxi back. So it's all about board control. It's all about keeping that board controller from early to mid game to late game, and then just using your mid to late game powerhouses to start beating down on your opponent once you've established board control. Because especially with Darkfire Sacrifice, you can usually develop something and then use cards like Spectral Blade and Demonic Lure or Grasp of Agony, for example, to deal with your opponent's board. And that's sometimes the tough thing about playing some of these late game decks or mid-rangey decks, is when you're getting to the mid to late game, it's sometimes a little bit tough to develop a board and deal with their stuff at the same time. Especially when in Abyssian, when you have just such high cost removal like Ritual Banishing or Dark Transformation. So that is the idea with the deck. Your minions are your removal in this deck, and you're really just having the bigger threat on the board at all times. And that's pretty much the goal of the deck. It's extremely effective. I think it's actually a pretty straightforward list. It's not that easy to play though. There are really tough decisions, especially when you really have to know the decks you're going up against. Knowing what to mulligan for example, against Vitruvian, mulliganing heavily for the Demonic Lures. This deck especially, I wanted to make a list that is still good against some of our better matchups, like fellow Abyssian decks, Vanar, some Songhai lists Abyssian's good at, especially if you have Void Pulse. But I wanted to make a list that can still help our Lionar and Vitruvian matchups, which are some of our worst matchups. And this deck is actually really, really good against... this deck has been pretty solid against Vitruvian and Lionar, I feel. I've only played a couple of games against them each, but the feel of it felt really good. The list felt really solid. I mean, Vitruvian's always going to be a terrible matchup for us, but including cards like 3 Lures and 2 Blood Tier Alchemists definitely does help against those matchups. It's just all about knowing the best course of action when you're playing the matchup. But we have just some powerhouse cards in the mid to late game, just some good threats, and that is sort of the core of the deck. Chaos Elemental also is sort of a card that's not really used other than in like more aggressive lists, but I actually think it's a good board control card. You're getting a 4/4 for 3, which allows you to trade up into emeralds. It allows you to trade with multiple small bodies possibly, and you're really wanting just a good body target with Healing Mystic as well. So with Healing Mystic, is not really healing yourself a lot of the time. Really, you're healing all of your minions. Even like Primus Fist, for example, or other healing mystics, you want to kill off something like a 2-attack creature, heal it back up, because you want to make it sticky. You want to keep as much as you can on the board, so you can use it to trade with other things, and just keep board control that way. So healing mystic more often than not is going to be healing stuff like Chaos Elemental or your other bigger bodies, and you can just establish board control that way. The deck went through a couple of changes. I actually ran Archon Spellbinders instead of Chaos Elemental, plus I also ran Right at the Undervault. I ran 1 Right at the Undervault and 2 Archon Spellbinders. Oh, excuse me. Got a little bit of stuff in my throat there. It's all gone. Because you empty your hand out fairly fast, you can notice we have a lot of early plays. I found one Right at the Undervault was nice to be able to fill your stuff up, fill your hand back up. But because of our mid to late game and how costly they are, a lot of the time you end up getting back to a full hand slowly anyways over the course of the game, so I figure it wasn't necessary. And Archon Spellbinder is great, and you could experiment with it back in, but I figured I was missing something, and it was missing a little bit more mid-game, and I just love Chaos Elemental moving early on. It's just a good early body, and it can trade with a bunch of things, plus potentially get in 4 face damage, and getting the chip damage in is important when you're not really running too much burst out of hand. So every single point of damage does count when it turns to you wanting to go more the aggressive side once you've established board control. And Chaos Elemental is the downside isn't as bad since we have cards like Bloodtear Alchemist and Lure to deal with opposing Jaxies, so it's harder for it to ping off without it getting traded into or your opponent hitting its face. And worst case scenario, it gets teleported into like a far left corner or a far right corner or something like that away from the action. It is nice knowing you have Darkfire Sacrifice to still get a little bit more value out of it, and then ramp up into something like Keeper of the Veil, which can potentially just get Chaos Elemental back, which is huge, or like Vorpal Reaver or Spectral Revenant in the following turns. And planning for Darkfire Sacrifice turns is super huge and super important. It's really, really nice. It actually worked out a lot better than I expected. I didn't expect 3 Darkfire Sacrifices to work well in a deck that didn't run Wraithlings or Sarlacc, but you're really not trying to make a slow deck with this. You want to play things on curve and accelerate fast into your big threats. That's pretty much the name of the game, and just put threat after threat after threat. Pretty much from Chaos Elemental on, you have some good solid threats. So that's why we have a healthy amount of 2-drops and a full set of Lures and Spectral Blades to really control the early game. And Grasp of Agony is just a huge card in the Vanar matchup, especially with Dancing Blades and Bloodtear Alchemist. You have additional activators, whereas normally you just have like Spectral Blade maybe as a better activator for Grasp of Agony. I find Dancing Blades is nice for that effect, and also Bloodtear Alchemist has been huge since Jaxi is just so popular. It's also another good target that you can put behind you, get its effect off, maybe kill off a mini Jaxi, and as long as they're not in range of hitting it with their general, they're likely not going to expend resources to deal with it. It's just not worth it. So it's nice being able to have a target moving forward to hit with Darkfire Sacrifice, and you're really looking to plan for those big turns and those big swings in tempo, because that's where the deck excels. Playing Dancing Blades for 3, removing something, getting a 4/6, and then still having enough mana to play like a Spectral Blade and remove something else, or Lure something and remove something, or even Grasp of Agony, for example. Like, you can have some very, very big turns thanks to Darkfire Sacrifice. And yes, you are sacrificing part of your board, but it's worth it in this kind of deck when you're just trying to have the bigger threat on board. So yeah, I know it might seem a little clunky, especially when we're not running like Wraithlings or Sarlaccs and stuff like that. But because the deck is able to play faster because of not because we're not running those kinds of cards, it actually is perfectly fine. And Darkfire Sacrifice speeds up the deck quite nice. So that is Threat-byssian. It is working out really, really well. I think it's going to be one of my go-to lists for climbing. I'm going to see how it works out in the higher ranks, of course. But, considering I'm still on a 7 win streak, it's nice. And the list just felt solid. So, and I did play against, Mech Vanar. I played against some I played against the Third Wish Vitruvian. So, it has competed up against those higher lists, and yeah, pretty solid. But other than that, let me know what you guys think. If you guys would swap things out. There are other cards to consider, like the Primus Fist slot. You could probably adjust things. Maybe like adding Azurhorn Shaman might be cool. I always like I like Azurhorn Shaman in a deck with Darkfire Sacrifice, being able to get its Dying Wish on your terms and buffing up like these other bodies is pretty huge actually. So that is something to consider. I could probably do that. You could also go with Shadow Dancer maybe if you want some more damage potential. And there's a lot of routes you could go, even adding Breath of the Unborn because of your good mid to late game bodies, healing them back up, dealing with more stuff. So many possibilities, but this is the first list I have because I just came up with this list today, and I've even only adjusted it minorly. Like I said before, these Chaos Elementals were just a recent addition, and they've been working out well. I think I had them in for the last 3 games I played. Because I felt the Archons were a little too clunky, and I don't think they were necessary. So the old list had 2 Archons and 1 Right of the Undervault in place of Chaos Elemental, but this list is much better because it's just a good threat for the 3-cost mana. So goes along with the theme a little better as well, and it makes it a little less clunky since you're not stuck with too many late game minions. But yeah, that is the list, guys. Let me know if you guys would make any any changes. If you guys have any advice. Or if you want to try out an Abyssian deck to climb for, I think this deck is pretty strong. I really like it. Feels good. Works well so far, and hopefully I can continue on with this 7-win streak, and we'll see where it goes from there. But other than that, guys, hopefully you guys enjoyed this video. Make sure to check out all the information I have in the description below to follow me on all the social media and all that fun stuff if you so choose. If not, no hard feelings. I know how annoying it is when people promote that kind of stuff, but hey, gotta try at least. Gotta try. I'll be sure to come up with some more decking around episodes in the future, especially since I just hit rank 10, so now I can't lose ranks. It gives me a little bit of time. I can just goof around, make some decking around stuff, and not have to worry about my rank. But until then, you guys, thank you guys so much for watching. Hopefully you guys have a great night, day, morning, wherever you are, and I will talk to you guys soon.